Hey there, welcome back to the Harp Studio. I'm Samantha, and today I'm going to show you how to play a late beginner arrangement of Married Life from Disney Pixar's Up. You can find a full video recording of this arrangement as well as the sheet music in the description below this video. This is an abridged beginner arrangement that can be played on either lever or pedal harp. There are actually no lever changes in this one, but if you have a pedal harp, you are going to have to do a couple pedal changes. It fits on a 29-string harp, but if you do have a 26-string harp, it can easily be modified to fit on your harp, and I'll show you how to do that later on. In today's tutorial, I'm going to be walking through the arrangement with some pointers on how to approach the piece, as well as trying to answer the most common questions students usually have, rather than walking through note by note. But I also just wanted to say I'm still new at making these kind of tutorials, so if you have any feedback or if you want me to go into more detail about any of the concepts that I talk about, please let me know in a comment. So let's get right into it. So before we play any new piece of music, I always tell my students, what do you notice? Take a look, go through the score, and just make any observations about anything that jumps out at you off the page. Pause and take a second to do that, and then we'll go through it together. So the first thing that I'm going to notice is the key signature. So here we have one flat in the key signature, and that tells you every time you see this note, it's going to be flat, unless otherwise noted with an accidental. So in this case, you can take a look, that flat sits on the B line, so that tells us all the B's in this piece are flat. But let's take another look. Speaking of the key, we also want to take a look at the pedal settings and lever settings. So let's start with the pedals. You're going to look at this chart here. All your pedals should actually be set to natural. So even though we have a B flat in our key signature, the first time we see a B in this piece is over here, and wouldn't you know it, there's a natural sign in front of it. So rather than waiting and changing from flat to natural on the second line, you can just set your pedals to natural to start with and then not worry about it until you need that B flat again later. Now, your lever settings. We have set levers here, and then we have a couple of B naturals, right? So both the B naturals in the bass clef. So what this tells us is we want to make sure that all the Bs on our harp are flat except for these two that are marked, and we want to set those to natural. If your harp is tuned in the key of E flat, you're also going to want to make sure that your E's and your A levers are also up, so they are natural instead of flat. The next thing that I like to do is go through and highlight anywhere you're going to have a pedal change or a lever change, depending on what kind of harp you're playing. So we're going to have a B flat pedal change there and a B natural pedal change here, B flat again there, right? So remembering that when you see the big letter with an accidental sign next to it under the staff, or in other arrangements you might see them in between the staves, that's a pedal marking. Lever markings look like these little diamond note heads in the staff, at least in my arrangements, that's how I do them. So if we scan through here, there actually are not any of those diamond note heads through the piece. We don't have to change any levers. Yay! That's really nice for us, so we don't have to worry about it. Set it and forget it. Next, let's make note of the time signature. We've got 3/4, so again, we're in kind of a waltz feel. There's 3 quarter notes in every bar. We also want to make note of clefs. You want to be careful about whether your left hand is in the treble clef or the bass clef. So we start with a bass clef at the beginning so that you can set your levers in the right spot, but then we're changing right away to a treble clef. And then we've got bottom staff, treble clef, all the way until this sneaky little bass clef at the end of the page. We're coming back to a bass clef at the beginning of page 2, and then we are staying in the bass clef until just the very last line of the piece. We're coming back to the treble clef. So remember that treble clef and bass clef don't mean right hand and left hand. Treble clef means notes above middle C, bass clef means notes below middle C. Next, you're probably also going to notice that sometimes there are fingerings written in here, sometimes there are not. So generally speaking, if you hit a part of the song where there are not fingerings written in, you want to look and see, is there anywhere that I've played the same thing or a similar thing, and can I use the same fingering in this spot? Or you just want to kind of think like, what's the most obvious fingering to use here? In today's tutorial, I am going to walk through some fingerings that you can use, so don't sweat it. But before we wrap up our score study initially, let's make note of a couple other things. We've got a big old glissando here at the bottom of the page. We've got some different symbols on the page, so let's go over those. These really long curved lines that you see, these are called phrase markings, or they're also called slurs. And the point of them here is just to show you where the phrases are. So phrase just means a musical idea, notes that go together and kind of make sense together, right? It's like when we speak in sentences. When we play music, we play melodies in phrases. So the first one You know, theoretically you could break those into smaller phrases if you wanted to, but it's sort of like that's one idea just to kind of break up on the page what's going on. You don't really need to play any differently. It's just more like mentally organizing the piece. Now you may also notice there's another curved line here on the second line. When you have a curved line that goes between two notes that are the same, actually they're all over the place. There's one here, there's one here. When you have a curved line like this going between two notes that are the same, that is called a tie, and it adds the value of the two notes together, right? So if I want a note that is 4.5 beats long, I can't fit that into one bar because we're in 3/4, right? There isn't 4.5 beats in a single measure, so I have to split it across 2 bars and use a tie to show I'm not playing these notes twice. I'm not playing 2 E's, right? I'm not going to play... I'm going to play a single E the first time, and I'm going to let it carry through. I'm just going to let it keep ringing for the duration of both those notes, and that's true anywhere that you see a tie like that. What else do we have in here? We've got a fermata, so a little half moon with a dot. That means you can let that note ring for longer than its notated value. We've got a rit and a poco rit. So rit means to gradually slow down. Poco means a little bit. So we have one where you just slow down as much as you want. And then the second time, poco rit, only slow down a little bit. We also have a tempo. So that means that after you've done your rit and you slowed down, go back to the starting speed that you were at before. We've also got a number of dynamic markings here. So we've got a P for piano or soft. We've got a decrescendo, meaning gradually get softer. We've got a crescendo at the end of the first page, so gradually getting louder. We have a piano here at the beginning of the piece, and I almost missed it, we've got mezzo forte down at the end of the page. So coming into page 2, we're going to be mezzo forte. And if you feel like you're going to forget that, you can always write it in for yourself there as well. Now, last thing to do before we start playing is just to go through and make note of where we have repeating material or anywhere in the song where things are similar. So the first thing that I want to point out is this left hand accompaniment here. We've got this like A that is coming in on beat 2 of each bar. We've got this first note that's descending by a step each time, right? F, A, E, A, D, A, C, A. That happens very similarly on the first line of page 2, but an octave lower, right? We have F, A, E, A, D, A, C, A, and same thing at the very end of the piece. A very similar pattern here. It's not quite identical. This fourth measure is a little bit different, but it's a similar idea. So when you get there, you don't have to start from scratch. You can go, oh yes, I remember this from before. Okay, let's look at the melody next. So here, this very famous melody, da-da-da-dum, da-da-da-dum, ba-da-da-dum. So we've got this kind of hopping up and down, right? From the F to the A, down to the E, F and the A down to the D, and then hopping up down to the C. Let's take a look. Anywhere else that we have that? Okay, it's a little tricky to spot. This is why I'm going to point it out to you. Again, we have this pick up at the end of the bar. I really tried to find the best place for a page turn. It was a bit tough, but what I came up with was this. So we've got this pickup, right? That's the same F, A, F onto the E, right? So that's the same intro as we had right at the beginning of the song. F, A down to the D. Then it changes a little bit, right? As we get to the end of the line, goes up instead of down. But the beginning of this phrase we've seen before, so that's good to know. Now, let's look at the end of the second line. So here, instead of hopping all the way up to A, we're going to step up to G and then walk down to E. Then we've got E, G, E, C. So we kind of have this skip up, skip down kind of thing going on. If we look at pick up into the third line on the second page, so we have the same F, G, F, E, and then again, skip up, skip down to C, skip up, skip down, step onto the B. So this little melody here is the same as well. So it's not always a straight repetition all of the time, but we do have little bits of material that is coming back that if you can recognize it, you don't have to learn twice. You can use it, learn it once, use it twice. So with that, we are ready to get into the meat of the piece. So let's get started right at the very beginning, and let's talk about the fingerings for the right hand. I suppose this is also true of the left hand though. So we've got finger numbers in here, but there aren't brackets, right? Because I didn't want to clutter up the page too much. So let's talk about when to connect and when to come off. So generally speaking, if you've got notes that are moving the same direction, you want to do those in the same placement. If you've got somewhere that the notes change direction, that's a good place for a connecting fingering. So for example, this first little pattern here, we've got two notes going up. Whoops, that's the wrong one. We got two notes going up and we have three notes going down. So it kind of stands to reason this middle note, the A, is going to be our pivot finger, our overlapping note for our connecting fingering. Now, it is true that from this E to this F to this A, these three notes are all going up, but generally speaking, when you have a long note, it's usually better to just come off the string and then start fresh when you start the next thing. So rather than connecting here, we're just going to start a new bracket over the F, and then we can connect down onto the D. Now again, we have a repeating note here, so that's a great time to come off. It's also a little bit of a longer note compared to the eighth notes that come before it. Same thing, we're going to place here, overlap there, and then we're going to come off. So that's line one, the right hand. Now in the left hand, something I do want to point out, so same thing here, we've got a lot of long notes, right? We've got a lot of half notes, so rather than, you know, connecting every single one of these things, I think over connecting in the left hand makes things way harder than it needs to be. So rather than doing that, you can just place these as individual groups. So 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, and come off in between, especially because we do have these half notes. They're a little bit longer. It's a good time to come off the string instead of trying to connect. Something else really important to notice to help you read this is we've got this A. Every single measure, you've got A. And then the bottom note just descends by 1 each time. Right? So that's going to help you keep your place on the strings. The less random the notes can feel, if you can provide some kind of context, if you can notice some kind of pattern, it's going to make it way easier to read, way easier to remember, and way easier to play. Let's continue on to line 2. First of all, let's talk about fingerings. So first of all, we do have a little note at the end of the previous line, this little 4. It's a pickup note. Pickup just means there's a note belonging to the phrase that comes before beat 1 of a measure. So we it looks like it's at the tail end of line 1, but really it belongs to line 2. So we have this little D here. We're going to connect that to this 1. We're going to place down to here. I've put a 4 on this D right here. I think it's a little bit more comfortable than the 3, but if you really hate it and you want to use a 3, go for it. Okay, but we can connect all the way through here because we don't really have any long notes kind of breaking this up. Then in the left hand, this little chord here, you can definitely go 1, 2, 3. I would roll this. I think any of the 3-note chords, anytime there's a chord with 3 or more notes in it, you can just assume that it's rolled, even if there's not a little squiggly mark. That's pretty standard in harp music. So you can roll this little chord here, or you can play it straight if you want to. It's a matter of opinion. Now, these two shapes here, if you find them at all challenging, so the second shape is this group of 4 notes here. If you find them at all challenging to get onto, what I really recommend, I'm going to use the group of 4 notes here, B, D, F, G. If you find it hard to get onto those, what I would do is I would place those 4 notes, give your fingers a little bit of a squeeze, lift off the strings about 1 centimeter or maybe 1/4 of an inch, but keep your hand in that shape. Close your fingers and then see if you can reopen all 4 fingers into that shape at the same time. Don't place until you're in the shape you want to be, then place and see how close you are. And you can kind of drop your hand next to you and then see how fast can I get my fingers in shape and replaced on the string. If your fingers know what shape they need to be in and they know where they're going, it's going to be much easier to get placed while the other hand is still playing. Okay, let's continue. So we have another pickup into the 3rd line. So here, these kind of shapes are very similar to what happens on line 1, which is why I didn't write in the fingerings, but I'm going to write them in for you now. So we can go 2, 1, 2, 3, 2, 1, 2, 3, and again 2, 1, 2, 3, and then for brackets, similar to what we did on the first line. So connecting onto here, coming off the string on the long notes, connecting on kind of this change in direction where we switch from going up to going down, coming off the string and connecting. There we go. Now, something to notice in the left hand here, we have a couple of measures where we have 2-note chords, right? And some of them are the same shape, some of them are different shapes. So the first bar and the last bar, these are the same. The one in the second bar, the interval is slightly bigger. And then in the third bar, obviously we have a 3-note chord. We have a triad instead of just 2 notes. But among all of these different chords, one note stays the same, and that is this G. On all of these chords, your thumb is going to be playing a G. It's just a question of what's happening underneath. Now, something else to keep in mind, these last 2 bars, the top 2 notes of the triad, and then the next chord you play, those are also the same. So it's really just this bottom C happens in bar 3, and then the 4th bar, it's gone. Pedal harpist, you're going to want to take note. We've got a B flat here in this 4th bar. And then let's continue on to the last line of page 1. So first of all, let's take a look at the right hand. We've got fingering marked here. Now this little dotted line, there isn't really a standardized way of kind of notating this, but this is indicating to use a cross under here. So because there's 5 notes all going in the same direction, at some point we're going to run out of fingers. So we need to use a cross under, right? So this is the same thing that you would use if you were playing a scale, but you play that 2, you reach your finger 3, you drop it down on the C past your thumb, and then you replace 2 and 1. So I'll play that in time. Okay, and then I feel like this next fingering probably is obvious, but just in case it's not, we've got 3, 2, 1, right? 3 notes all moving the same direction. In the left hand, we've got a couple of triads, so you can just go 1, 2, 3 on both of these. And again, you can roll those. I would, if you think it sounds better not rolled, that's totally fine as well. And then of course, the most exciting part of this line is we have a big old glissando. So let's talk about glissandos. In this case, you'll notice there is a top note marked and there is not a bottom note marked. The other thing to take note of is when in the bar this takes place. So we have a rest on beat 1. So this is a quarter rest, so this is going to start on beat 2. So this, in the right hand, we have this dotted quarter note happens on beat 1. A dotted quarter note gets a beat and a half. So we would count 1 and 2, and then these last 8th notes go and 3 and. So what we're going to do is we're going to just take a big old downward gliss right on beat 2. You can continue it past where the right hand is going to be playing, or you can stop it before the right hand begins to play. It doesn't really matter. And the other thing is, the top note, what you play as the top note also doesn't really matter. You want to kind of start it up high on your harp, but you just want to like take your gliss and play it pretty quickly. So we're not really going to hear the pitch of the first note that you play. Okay, so let me just show you instead of just speaking at you, okay? So coming in from the previous measure, that's what we're aiming for, right? So if I'm counting 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, and 3, and 1. So again, your glissando, doesn't matter what note you start on. You're just gonna take your thumb. You can have either fingers, you can have your hand open, or you can keep your fingers in like you were playing. You're just gonna drag that thumb down the strings. Starting on beat 2, you can end the glissando just before your right hand starts playing like this. And that's fine. Or you can make it a little bit longer and have it continue while your right hand starts to play. Kind of just depends what you like and what you feel comfortable with. Sometimes glissandos can feel a little overwhelming because there's just like a lot happening, and then you have to like move both hands quite a lot. So what I would do in this situation, first of all, we need to know where the right hand is going. So right hand is just going to be playing up to this E and then moving down to this F. Now you can't place your fingers before the gliss, but you can move your hand into the general area that you want it to be in and have your hand open in ready position so that the fingers are ready to play as soon as it's time, right? So right hand by itself. And this does continue on to the beginning of the page, so you're going to want to know where your fingers need to be going at the beginning of that next page as well. Left hand, you've got a triad, and then you have a gliss. So basically, as soon as you're done playing this triad, you don't have to hang out right here. You can get the hand into the shape you want to be doing your glissando in, so getting your thumb out and ready and just like hanging out in the high end of this harp, right? So I'm going to play my triad, move. Then what I really need to do is know where I need to go after the gliss. So after the gliss, I need to hop onto this lower F and A. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to practice playing the gliss and then landing where I want to start at the beginning of the next page. So gliss, land. And I do recommend to start with like not even playing the notes, just like practicing the landing. Because as soon as you start playing, you're not really thinking about the landing anymore. Once you've got the landing, then actually playing the notes as well. So then when you put that all together, you've got left, move, right, move, gliss. So it's kind of like one hand moves, the other moves, they kind of trade. But if each hand knows where it's going and is moving ahead of time, you're going to be able to put the pieces together. So let's continue to the next page. Top of the page here, as we've discussed, is the same as the very beginning, just an octave lower. So you can use the same fingerings, right? At least to start with. 2, 1, 2, 3. Same deal. Same thing the left hand, same fingerings. 2, 1, 2, 1, 3, 1, 3, 1. But it does change a little bit here. So we've got 4, 3, 2, 1. Now I'm going to be real with you. This is a little bit of an awkward fingering position to place all these notes, but sometimes a melody is just a little bit tricky, and that's okay, but you can play this. So something to keep in mind, if you're familiar with triads and their inversions, something you can think about here, this group of 3 notes, this is a D triad in inversion. So D, F, and A, it's just that the D is up here. So we have a broken triad there, and we're just adding another note on the top. So if that helps you find these 4 notes, then awesome. But in terms of actually knowing what the shape is here, I'm gonna have 4, 3, 2, 1, and same thing that we kind of talked about with the left hand on the first page. I would just kind of like place the fingers on the string, give them a bit of a squeeze, lift off about 1 centimeter, staying in the shape, closing the hand, reopening all 4 fingers together into that shape, and not placing until you've reached the shape you want to be in, then placing the fingers together. And just drilling that a bunch of times until you feel like you can actually get to that shape in time. Then you can play the notes that come before, and then practice moving your hand, getting into that shape. And that's how you're gonna get through this phrase, even though we have a little bit of a tricky shape there. All right, so looking at the second line now on page 2, let's start with the right hand. So first of all, don't forget that we have a little pickup note at the end of the first line here, this little D. That's part of the phrase. Now, this fingering right here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 1, this is a little bit of a wide gap between 3 and 4. It's not impossible, the actual fingering here, so you'd want to connect the 2 onto the 1, and then overlapping bracket there, overlapping bracket here. So this 1, 2, 3, 4, it's definitely doable. You just want to make sure that when you're playing your 4th finger, that the angle you're bringing your finger into your hand is kind of downwards and at an angle outward from the string so that you're not hitting any extra notes, you're not hitting the B above it. If you try to come straight back, that's when you're going to hit an extra string. Okay, but if you find this fingering uncomfortable, you don't like it, you can also reach up and grab this A with a finger 2 in the left hand. That's an optional adjustment you can make there because the left hand doesn't have anything else going on in this bar. So you can totally do that as well and make it a little bit easier. So that's the right hand. Actually, I forgot one note in this phrase. This phrase goes all the way to here. Here, so earlier I said, if you've got a long note, come off the string. This time I probably would connect these two just because they are musically connected. Da, 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 right? That last D is part of the phrase. So if we connect it with the fingers, it's gonna sound a little bit more connected as well. Let's talk about the left hand here. We do have a B natural pedal change for the pedal harpists, but this B, if you have a 26 string harp, this B and this B, because they're the same, might be too low for your harp, but very simple. You can just play them up the octave. So that would be like in your treble clef here and here. Okay, so instead of playing them, you could play them here. And that's totally fine, totally easy. The two hands will not bump into each other. So very easy adjustment for a smaller harp. So we've got pick up at the end of line 2 into line 3. Again, this is the same material that we saw on line 3 of the first page, so you can use the same fingers here, but we have a couple of interesting things going on in the accompaniment. So first of all, these first 3 bars, we've got 2-note chord, and then a triad. So here we're going to go 1, 2, 1, 3, and then 1, 2, 3. If you have trouble moving between these different chord placements, I would just place the fingers on the strings and move between the 3 measures, one after the other, without actually playing. So this is what I like to call practicing placing, and it's just about actually finding your way around. And once you can do that, then you can play the notes and you're going to be able to find your way around a lot more easily. We're back to B flat for the pedal harpists. And we've got a little rit here, so if this next bit is challenging at all, that's totally fine because you've got written instruction to slow down. So you can make it really as slow as you kind of need to. But what is happening here, we've got a little mini arpeggio. So what's happening is the first 3 notes your left hand is going to play. The next 3 notes your right hand is going to play, right? So left, right. And then this last note here, your left hand is going to come up and grab. So the rhythm here, it's just every 1 and 2 and 3 and count in the bar is there's gonna be an 8th note on it. It's just left hand's taking the first 3, right hand's taking the next 3, and then we've got 1 note that's last that your left hand is gonna reach past the right hand and play. Something else to just remember, that these notes are not part of the melody. So even though these notes in the treble clef staff are in the top staff, they're not actually part of the melody, right? The melody is da 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 dum, da 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 dum, ba da da dum. That's the melody. It's not this next bit. So I'm going to show you how to do this. So we go, right hand plays its note, left hand takes the first 3, right hand takes the next 3, left hand takes the top one. So while the right hand is playing, left hand's going to move up and take that top note. You can also take this top B with the thumb instead of the 2. Doesn't really matter there. Okay, and then we're almost done, almost to the end. So this last little bit, fingerings, we can go 3, 2, 1, and then back onto the 2. So you would definitely want to connect there. Okay, and then left hand, again, we talked about this at the beginning. Same as the beginning, so you can do the same fingerings, 2, 1, 2, 1, 3, 1, 3, 1. This note is a little bit different, right? Instead of the A that the first 3 bars have, we land on a G. Okay, and then let's talk about these last 2 bars. We do have quite a few ledger lines. If you need to write in the notes, that's totally fine. Totally go for it. But remember, to figure out ledger line notes, you just count the lines and spaces through the music alphabet. So if we know that the top line in the treble clef is F, then this bottom note is going to be G. Then we're going to have A as the first line, B, C, D, and then the top line will be E. And then this one, shortcut here is if you can kind of recognize that the distance between these two notes is the same as the first chord, the whole thing is just shifted up a step. So if this is G and E, this is going to be A and F. And then this bottom note, if we count down first line, because we're in the treble clef, remember, right? We're in the treble clef here. So first line is C. So then we have B, A, G. Bottom line here is going to be F. So these last two bars are going to sound like this. That last F, I played it with a 4 there. You could play with a 2. It doesn't really matter. These chords on the top, I would definitely go 1, 3. And the little poco rit, so if you need a little extra time to find that last chord, you can take your time. But that's it. That's Married Life from Up. I hope this tutorial was helpful. Please let me know in the comments if there's any feedback you have about the tutorial format or the editing or whatever, or if there's any concepts that I mentioned in this video that you would like to see me explain further in a future video, definitely let me know in a comment. And if you want to know when I come out with more sheet music, definitely sign up for my email newsletter. Link is in the description of this video. Thanks so much for watching, and happy harping.